Hey guys, I'm back with another figure drawing demonstration. Again, we are working with a figure from SenshiStock. This is my reference and you can see the finished drawing here. So this one actually took a couple of takes and I'm going to share that with you guys because I think it's important to understand that revising your process is a good thing. So this is my first attempt. I kind of just started sketching. I really didn't do a whole lot for placement. I did put in a line of action, but I didn't really do anything to kind of gauge the pose. And this is a sitting pose, and sitting poses are some of my weaker poses, so I really should have taken the time to figure out the pose a little bit better before I got started. As you guys can see, the torso is already too long, and I kind of didn't realize that until I'd gotten pretty deep in and I thought I could fix it, but I really couldn't. You see, I kind of lifted up the pelvic, let's call it the pelvic axle, because I usually draw in the pelvis bones in a way similar to how a car's axle functions. And I start sketching in all of the skeletal forms. I don't think I got too far into this before I realized it just wasn't going to work. And I decided to start over because that's one of the great things about using color pencil is you kind of have to scrap it when you screw up too badly. And that saves you from trying to rework something that's broken anyway. So this is when I realized it was not working for me. And I started again. This time I started by drawing a triangle because her pose, as you guys can remember, her pose is a very triangular sort of pose. And I used this to sort of help me place all the elements a little bit more accurately. I feel like using this triangle to help me position the figure really helped a lot. I recommend you use whatever tools you have at your disposal to help you when you're placing and drawing figures in a scene. Even if you're just drawing from reference, practicing these visual aids will make you more comfortable with using them. So I start fleshing out the legs because, like we talked about in some of the prior videos, the legs, the bottom of the torso in this pose, they're carrying most of the weight. I want her to feel like gravity is actually acting upon her figure. I also took time to make sure that the areas where her muscles were hitting the ground, those are actually flatter, since that was what was in the reference, and I like that. So you guys saw me reinforcing that so it's a little bit more noticeable. As with my prior figure drawing videos, you guys can see I use a sphere to block in the head, and then I extend the face into a spade-like shape, and I use crosshairs to subdivide the face. And then I finally get around to placing the arms. It's not that the arms aren't important, but it's more that they are sort of posed around the rest of the figure in this illustration. And I go ahead and I start sketching in the back leg. Now, if you guys can remember, she is holding onto her leg as well as onto a book. So I sketch in her hand really roughly. For those of you who have trouble drawing hands, I recommend you capture the gesture of the pose before worrying about the exact placement of the fingers. So we have the basic pose here. I decide I'm really not happy with the placement of the head. So I use a pad of craft paper sticky notes to help me revise. Since I don't have a problem with the figure as a whole, I just have a problem with the placement of the head. So I go ahead and I redraw that. And what's nice about kind of working everything at the same pace, not refining any one area, is if I need to scrap the whole thing, it's not like I've drawn a particularly beautiful face and I'm sad to see it go. I am only losing a certain amount of work. So you see, I use the crosshairs to subdivide the face, and now I'm kind of fleshing in some of the other details on this figure, drawing in her bodysuit. As we talked about in prior videos, this kind of gives the viewer a sense of the forms, and it also keeps this safe for work. It's one of the things, as I've mentioned in earlier videos, that I really like about SenshiStock poses is they're interesting poses, they're realistic poses, and they're also clothed poses. So if you are a younger artist, this might be a resource you can actually utilize. So I'm kind of detailing, working in the foot. And feet aren't normally something that gives me trouble, but there's something about this foot that I'm really struggling with. So at this point I realize I need to sharpen my pencil. It's gotten entirely too dull. So I do that, and then I tighten in on the face. Now you guys can actually see what I'm doing. So I've mentioned in prior videos the 3-eye technique to subdivide the face, where you place an eye in the middle of the face right at that crosshair, and then you place an eye on either side of it, and that way you can get your eye spacing accurate. And then her nose is a little bit larger, and she's looking down, so it goes a little bit further than the midpoint from the eyes to the middle of the face. And then the mouth is from the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the face. It's the midpoint there. Now she's wearing pigtails in this illustration, in this photo. So I was happy to draw those. Buns are nice, but pigtails are fun too. And as I've said in some of the other videos, I'm not particularly concerned about capturing everything perfectly. I'm really just trying to get back into the habit of doing daily figure drawing that takes about 10 minutes. And as we discussed again in prior videos, I'm also doing a little bit more study on how light hits the form. So I'm just kind of shading things in here. Now, around this point, I realized I really don't like how that foot is drawn, so I'm going to use the same solution I used for the head. I'm going to put a sticky note there and redraw it. This is a pretty common technique among animators, and it's one that I'm happy to steal for myself, because when I'm sketching, this makes revising very easy. I don't even have to spend time erasing. And I'm still not happy with that foot, but I did want to keep this under 10 minutes. Alright, so that is another figure from Reference Drawn. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you again really soon. Bye guys!